Yes, so welcome to Building in Kenya, BuyRentKenya webinar, the third one in a series of 3 that we've had since May. We've had one in May, we've had one in June, and this is our July one. We're just waiting for more people to join in. I see about 20 people are in the room. Usually we hit around 80 people, so hopefully more people will be joining us soon. It's just a wonderful sunny morning in June. I think we have missed the sun in Nairobi. Climate change is real. It's been cold since April, 13 degrees every day, and we're just happy to see the sun. I don't know, Edward, whether we should be happy or not to seeing the sun in June, but surely she has been missed. And I'm not referring to June the panelist, I'm referring to June the month. So thank you so much. Today is a very exciting day. Robin Emerson and Emma Miloyo, who are co-authors of Building in Kenya, the one and the only kind of book in Kenya that just takes people through the process of real estate development. And we've, been having a series co-hosted with BuyRentKenya. We're in the business of selling buildings in Kenya, so and providing a platform for people to be able to, operate. So we kind of are kindred spirits in that sense of facilitating and ensuring the real estate industry is able to thrive. And even as we talk about in real estate industry thriving, we are very much conscious of the fact that we live in an ecosystem, and a built environment is one of the biggest contributors to carbon emissions. I think about concrete and cement industry on its own contributes about 30% to all carbon emissions, and that's why today we thought it was quite right to have this conversation this morning. We'll be having a part 2 session. First one where Robin is going to moderate. The second one I will moderate. So I'm just going to hand over to Robin. The second one will have Etta Madete, an architect, and Stephen Wilu from National Construction Authority, who'll be giving us a perspective from building code. But I'd love to hear something from Robin, who will carry on the session and introduce our wonderful panelists this morning. Over to you, Robin. Robin, you may need to unmute.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you very much, Emma. Thank you, and congratulations on the 2nd anniversary of Building in Kenya. And we're happy to be here again in partnership with BuyRentKenya. As Emma mentioned just a moment ago, the built environment does have a key role in averting a crisis. And several crises, right? And so there's the building crisis, but also the climate crisis. And so what's our role in that? There is no doubt that the earth is changing, and our sector has a huge role to play inside of that. From where we build, it impacts transport and transportation and how people are moving about. We have water usages that our sector plays a role in, the way that pervious cover and so forth, and how that impacts the heating effects, if you will. And so we have a big role to play in this climate change fight that we're up against. I know our panelists feel the pressure that they say that we actually have a diminishing window, if you will, to impact this climate change issue. And so we wanted to close on this series to talk about this pressing issue, and to bring the experts in Kenya that are working on this issue from various aspects of it. So you're in for a treat today. We're so glad that our panelists have joined us. And so let me first start by introducing the 2 panelists that will be in the first session. So June Arunga Kimani is the CEO of Usafi Comfort. And she will share with us a little bit more about the amazing work that she's doing and the technology she's bringing with on-site wastewater management solutions. But she also is the newly elected vice chairperson of the Kenya Green Building Society. So thank you very much, June, for being here. And then we have Dr. Edward Mungai, who is the CEO of the Kenya Climate Innovation Center. And, and that is so important, that is someone that is actually focusing on those innovations. And there are a lot of innovations that are coming on board, and we just want to have a discussion about that and invite us to look at how does our sector, the built environment, the spaces where we live, that we work, how does that impact that? So June, I just want to ask you a question. You are inside of the Kenya Green Building Society, and you are also, if you will, on the ground working with innovations and products and that will bring solutions to people in their building innovation. What do you see as the marriage between the built environment and this issue of climate change, green space, green innovation? What for you is the marriage between the two?
Thank you so much. Shout out to Building in Kenya on turning 2. It's marvelous to have created this platform where people can actually find verifiable information, which is, I feel, is the spirit of Building in Kenya. And inside the green building sector, that's needed more than ever, because it's a bit of a mystery. What does green buildings mean? And like you said, how is it connected to the climate crisis and so on? So first of all, buildings constitute a huge part of our lives. We spend a lot of time in buildings. Whatever it is we're doing most of the day, we're doing in buildings more and more. We're no longer, outside in the farms as we predominantly were. And from their construction to the space they occupy, to the energy they consume, to the embodied energy in the materials used to build the buildings, it takes a lot to make a building, to run a building, and to ensure that even the waste that is generated in a building is properly handled in order to leave a neutral impact on the environment. Otherwise, generally, buildings leave a negative impact on the environment as we speak right now. Therefore, there is now the push towards net neutrality for buildings, so that we can actually highlight that impact that buildings is having on the environment, and then try to reduce that impact, and where it can't be reduced, deal with the greenhouse gases in ways that we can actually cancel out that negative effect, to put it in layman's terms. So there's a lot from paints to concrete to the energy consumption to wastewater production. There's a lot that buildings contribute to the status of the environment and to human well-being in general. I hope I answered your question. You're on mute, Robin.
Sorry, thank you. So I mean, you definitely have, pointed out what the nexus is between the two. And so helping us to see that these buildings don't just happen in a vacuum. They're not just somewhere and don't have any impact or any residual left behind, if you will. So Dr. Mungai, in your center, in your center, are you looking at, how do you see, when you're looking at climate innovation, how do you place the built environment when you're thinking about innovations at your center? Where do you place our sector?
Well, thank you very much, and also for inviting me, to give some views here. But even before I get into, where is the space or the place for innovations, first of all, is to say that well done, guys, because also to Kenya Green Building Society, in the sense that you're getting into this, conversation now, and yet building sector, construction sector, have been a culprit. When you look at what Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change is saying, building environment is one of the top, emitters of CO2. This may be the materials that they are using, it may be about the designs, it may be many things. you know, and based on that, then there is a concerted effort, there is need, you know, to engage and try to see how can we actually reduce emissions and therefore then address the challenge of climate change. Innovation, for sure, is an element that will help us to this space. When at KCIC we talk about innovations, we talk them from two perspectives. One is about technology, but second is also about what we call a business model, or if you like, when we talk about, you know, building sector and building environment, is delivering, you know, a product in a different way that respects the environment. It must not necessarily be about technology. And when you couple those two factors together, then you come up with innovation. It might not be that you're saying, you know, build sector or build environment is one of the areas that, you know, we support. But actually some of the products that you are making, some of the innovations that you are seeing coming up are needed to address, you know, some of those challenges that you are seeing within the build environment. And I think, you know, the call to action here, you know, why are we saying that, you know, you've been, and allow me to use that word, that you've been the ones who are biggest in pollution and also in terms of emissions? One is about how you choose your sites. And you're saying we must be able to come up with innovative ideas. How then do we choose the sites that are going to put up, you know, buildings and other constructions? The second thing is obviously the design part. And I think this is where I was talking about, you know, that other than the technology, that other innovation that we would like to see. You know, when it comes to design, we want to see design moving from what I call plain vanilla kind of designs, you know, to designs that is thinking about future generations. A design that is conscious about the environment that people live in and how we can start that environment. I think it's also about the materials that you're using. And I think this is where, as KCIC, we see us, you know, as the biggest contributor as far as the materials that you're using. May it be about replacement of concrete, for instance, and where we can be able to use agricultural waste, for instance, rice husks, which can be used to make, you know, gypsum boards or replacement of gypsum boards, which then means that you have a more sustainable material that is being used. But truly, innovations must be brought in as far as the materials are concerned. And of course, the last thing, and also something that also we can contribute to, you know, is in terms of the requirements for building. May it be the cooling systems, may it be about the energy that is being used within those buildings. How can we become innovative? And for instance, we have renewables. For instance, we have green buildings, if you like, which, you know, have some of the elements of the utilities that are being used within buildings, respecting the issue of environment. And together, you know, and putting all these things together, I think we will be able to champion, you know, a better climate, and we will be able to champion better livelihoods for future generations. And that way, climate change probably might be the thing of the past. Thank you. You are on mute.
This is, for some reason, it's going off automatically. I'm not even touching it. So maybe it's climate change. The climate change bugs don't want this conversation to happen. The gremlins.
Robin, you keep on blaming climate change for everything. It's fine.
Those gremlins don't want this to happen, or to hear my voice at least. You know, June, and everyone here, you know, if I look over the timeline, if you will, when we think about, you know, first was called sustainable development, right? So we were calling it, what is sustainable development? And even, you know, if we look back historically, how houses were being made here in different ethnic groups, we could say there was some sustainable there. They may not have called it that, but there was some, you know, lessening effects of the leave behind of their houses and their homesteads and so forth. But then, of course, industrialization as it rolls in, and big building and so forth. Some of that may have gotten lost, if you will, and we started to go for glossy, big, anything industrial, and then the pendulum started to swing back to thinking about, hey, this might not be something that will, you know, be here for as long as the Mayan ruins or the Egyptian pyramids. We need to be thinking in another way. And so I just want to say that I'm recollecting that 14 years ago, not 14 years ago, yeah, gosh, it's been a long time. 12 years ago, even maybe. Sorry, my calculations are off. When I was CEO of Kenya Property Developers Association, we actually incubated. I brought Elizabeth and I said, you are going to be incubated in KPDA, even before she was registered, anything, because I knew that it was the property developers that were key. They were key and responsible for this. And so at that time, June, you won't believe the amount of pushback I got back from developers and thinking, oh, Robin, we don't have to think about that. This is, that triple bottom line, the PPPs and so forth. Robin, we don't need to think about that. But I was warning of this is our responsibility. And so to now start to see and even as you both mentioned, that even at this time, it seems innovative to have this discussion, right? Even at this time, it still seems innovative to have that discussion. And so at that time, we were looking at what were some of the barriers to understanding this. And so I'd love to hear from both of you. What are some of the barriers still to transitioning to some of the best practices of this development? Is it, at that time, we were thinking about, is it the insurance industry that won't maybe relegate or insure some of these new products? Is it policy? But we know that we have new financing bonds, green bonds that have come on. We know that other things. What are the barriers? I'd love to hear from you. What are the barriers to wholesale adoption? Maybe June, you can go first.
Okay, I was going to say maybe Dr. Mungai can go first, but that's fine. My personal view of it is that there's still a need for much more awareness, but if we wait for awareness, we might wait too long. I think there is a strategic sector that can actually, if they buy into this, and we're seeing organizations like ABSA beginning to provide that thought leadership in the financial sector, which is the sector I'm thinking about. If the financial sector were to make this a gating factor, that the game would be over. If the financial sector were to take the issue of sustainability seriously and say we're not going to finance any more developments if the designs are not shown to be consistent with certain standards. The standards exist. I think the IFC has also shown leadership in creating standards like EDGE, which are easy for people in the industry, consultants in the industry to use and developers to adhere to. Organizations like KGBS are doing what they can, but there's IFC, and then there's quite a bit of green financing now being made available. The banks have been sitting with it for a while, but we're now seeing that the challenge had been internal buy-in and cogent kind of products that the finance industry felt they could actually go for, even the multilateral investors. So I think really the crux is at finance, and once finance sorts out their business models and what products they want to put out there to incentivize going green, by removing a percentage point or two, because those incentives have already been provided to them, then the market will move green for sure.
Okay, great. So I want to ask, who's responsible for this incentivizing? Is it the government's role? When we think about the government's role is to for protection of the public, if you will. Is it this knowing and this knowledge? What is the government's role in that nudging to steer people towards best practices that they know is in the good of the people? So Mungai, I'd love to hear from you also, barriers and government's role, and if you have anything to add there.
Yeah, for sure. And, government is actually one of the points on my list as far as, the barriers are concerned. Not necessarily that I'm saying they are barriers, but we'll get to that point. I think point number one, is this point that June was talking about, awareness. And it just, sent me back, I think, 30 years ago or thereabout, when a conversation was started about clean cook stoves. And, a lot of messaging was going out there, but that messaging didn't have any effect. I mean, personally, my own mother, have had this gospel of clean cook stoves for more than 25 years. And only probably about 3-4 years ago is when she switched. Because her thought was that, githeri, as an example, cannot be cooked on a biogas. It cannot be cooked on a clean cook stove. This is exactly what is going, with the project owners and project developers. They are in denial. But that denial is because we also, Kenya Green, KGBS, and others, probably we need to communicate exactly what are the effects, of climate change to their investments. And if then they can be able to understand that clearly, then we'll be able to see some traction for people changing and switching, to better ways of constructing, which then respects the environment. So awareness creation is key. The second bit is also about, we are talking about innovations here. And I don't think we have gotten even to a point where we are showcasing what innovations are there. So I think there is also a responsibility. I'm not too sure whose responsibility it is, to show exactly what alternatives are there. One thing is to tell them this is the challenge, this is what's going to happen to your investment. The second thing is to tell them, yes, this is indeed what you can be able to use to plug in that gap, and hopefully some of these technologies will help them to become better. But more so, the government is also required. And why do we need government? We need government for policy making. And that is the role of government. So government must be able also to come up with, with policies, and they are trying. I must say that, they are doing their bit, but we need to see more specifically on the built environment sector. A good example, for instance, is these solar water heating systems that they put a couple of years back. Very progressive. And based on that, we have seen more and more buildings having, solar water heating systems. We want to see more of this being replicated, and hopefully then we can be able to push people, because one, they can go voluntarily, and I think the 2 points we're talking about voluntarily, but they also need to be pushed, where we have some regulations. But also to the point, of June about financing. Actually that to me is my least concern when it comes to financing. Why is it the least concern? Because these days, everything that you talk about finance, it becomes sustainable finance. And for sustainable finance to be able to tick the box, if you are a developer and you want money from ABSA, you want money from KCB, then indeed there is a checklist that they will have to go through. As we speak, I'm working with one of the major banks, trying to help them on a criteria on how they will be able to assess their project as far as climate change is concerned. What does that tell you? If your project doesn't respect the environment, doesn't respect climate change, then you will not get financing. Because financing is moving from, the traditional finance to sustainable finance. So it's a question of, the stakeholders within the built environment sector to start thinking on how they can bring in the word sustainable within their projects, and hopefully then they can be able to unlock the financing. So that's how I see it, and those are my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you. And, I was just thinking about the finance part, and, how many people are financing their projects outside of, going to get a major bank loan, if you will. How do we still incorporate this even in, the shamas who are building and all the others? There's a lot of building that aren't directly going to large financing that may have these checkpoints, and we still should be influencing that. We should still be, educating them on when you are developing, what you should be making certain that are part of those projects, if you will. June, from the Kenya Green Building Society, what are there lobbying? Is there advocacy that's there? What can the sector do more of for some of these things? And I know you had a slide. I don't know. Just let me know at what point you might want to see that. But from the this advocacy side, and from the our sector's society on green building, what are some of the wins, the challenges? What's on board? Anything you want to share from that perspective?
Yes, definitely. So the Kenya Green Building Society is actually an advocacy body primarily. Apart from advocacy, we also do certification of buildings, and we do training for green building experts, and we do a lot of education for the industry in general. On the advocacy side, the Kenya Green Building Society has done quite a lot of work in advocacy. You find that the different aspects of green building are spread across very many government agencies and ministries. And so that's why it's really difficult to see major celebration of specific wins, because they're spread across many different strategies that are, if you think about a building and all of the things that are regulated inside a building, there are many, and we address kind of each of them. So on the energy side, of course, there have been significant wins, but I would say the biggest one is, I'll mention two that are worth noting. Number one, the Ministry of Housing made an announcement that all affordable housing, government financed affordable housing in Kenya, has to adhere to the EDGE standard, which is a green building standard put out by the IFC. That is a major win in terms of implementation and enforcement. I think that's another journey, but to actually get an agency responsible for regulating and approving these affordable housing initiatives, to not only recognize and be aware of, but make that kind of declaration. That was early last year. That's huge. It took quite a lot to get to that. Then, secondly, there's something I was going to mention which is escaping my mind at the moment. Let me just have a look here. The building code. So the building code is under review, was under review, as you know, and KGBS spent quite a lot of time reviewing the entire code for sustainability and for green building practices and standards, and made presentations to the committee in charge. And the feedback we got was quite positive. A lot of what they were hearing, they said, was just made common sense, and were wondering why hasn't that been included before. And so we're really looking forward to seeing what will come out of that process in terms of that infusion, that attempt to infuse sustainability across board within the building code. So those are two things that I think we can look out for and see as the year advances. Affordable housing and the building code. The building code will be huge. Okay. I think if we get something adopted in there, yeah.
Okay, well, we'll definitely be on the lookout, and KGBS, please call on us. Please let us know when it does come out, and highlight those points that are in this new code for this exact purpose. Make certain that the sector is aware of it, and we can make certain that we shout about it and implement it. So is there a governmental seat where green building accountability is housed? Does the ministry have a desk of green building or NCA? I know we have a panelist here from NCA, but is there someone who is leading that charge and has an accountability for it, June?
Currently, I think it's really the Ministry of Housing. The Ministry of Housing has kind of taken the leadership in that. PS Hinga green building and sustainability are very close to his heart, and not newly, but even previously in his career, I think. So we happen to have someone in that seat who understands the significance of this. I think the Ministry of Environment has also shown quite a bit of support for the enforcement side of things, and the awareness side of things as well, in terms of supporting technical training. But maybe Dr. Mugai can also share a bit, because he, I think, probably might have some further insights on that. But currently, officially, there isn't a domicile of sustainability per se. I know that the Ministry of Housing is thinking around that, and I think that's also something that would be interesting to look out for, maybe somewhere towards the end of next year. Yeah, there's some rumblings about management and organization where this can be residing.
Yeah, for sure. I also don't remember, a specific body within government which is championing green building. But the thing is that, and I'm giving this as, as a forecast and kind of foretelling into the future, that this is indeed coming. And why do I say it's coming? Number one is that the government of Kenya last December went in and confirmed not only that they are going to reduce emissions by 30%, but they also increased that to 32% as far as the NDC is concerned, national determined contribution as per the Paris Agreement. Now, that said, the government therefore is keen to look at the sectors which are being challenged and the sectors that are big emitters, where built environment and construction is definitely at the middle of that. And in this case, then, we have seen, conversations, not necessarily that there's something that is being put, but believe me, that sustainable building, green building, will be the in thing in the next couple of years if we are going to meet, the requirement that to have been put of 32% cut in emissions. And therefore, this would probably bring in this mindset that we have about deals with that. But I am not only within the built environment sector, but also for banking, for instance. We've had central bank now wanting banks to reduce emissions on their project. We have seen Capital Market Authority also trying to come up with new regulations. Nairobi Stock Exchange yesterday, they issued, a guideline on terms of how people are going to report both on climate change, but on other sustainable things. And therefore, this is the time, and it is coming, and it will be sooner than we expect. Thank you.
Okay. Well, that is, good stuff to look ahead on. We asked both of you to call on the built environment to rally around. I think, sometimes when they know that you have a force behind you, a group of people that know that we can barely wait any longer on this, it may come sooner than later. I think we're seeing, we're seeing that even in the U.S. and some other places, they're having heat waves that they haven't had before. We know that, again, we're talking about a climate change experience here that is unusual. And I guess we keep saying it each year, it's colder and colder, if you will, but I'm also getting older and older, which might have something to do with it. And so, Dr. Mungai, you talked about, the different aspects of this climate change and where our sector can play in. I'm an urban planner, and you talked about where we choose to even develop, where we choose to do some of these matters and how we build. I'm just right here around me. What I'm seeing is developers are building on 100%, June, of a plot. The whole, and we know that, that the impervious cover that leaves is that there's the runoff and the drain off, and then the soot that ends up in in our water and everything else. I'm gonna just ask that we kind of continue to link some of the knowledge that you two have, seeing at the policy and what the theory and what people are, global standards and practices. Please continue to link us back to our day-to-day work. please continue to, pry yourself into those meetings and discussions with urban planners, okay, with engineers, with the people that are thinking about the products to buy, or, even the quantity surveyors, if you will. What are the products that they're buying, June, that we can think about that are, more safe and so forth. Continue to educate us, if you will. When you see that big picture, bring it down to the micro. We need your leadership there. We need your voice as we go forward with the sector. Just want to give you both a chance to give a parting shot before we transition to the next session. June, anything in closing? Uh-oh, you're mute, June. There you go.
I would like to say that the Kenya Green Building Society is providing a lot of resources, training for industry practitioners, from urban planners to engineers, architects, anybody who's in the industry who would like to know what a green building is, how do they get even certified to themselves, be able to be auditors and certifiers of green building, and just to acquire that knowledge. It is a coming world, and the sooner you get the information, the better. And Kenya Green Building provides this kind of training and certification on behalf of various agencies and for different certification frameworks. And then we also have just launched our Green Materials Directory. So those who want to know what are green building materials, where do we find them, who in Kenya is selling these green building materials, that directory exists for the Kenya Green Building Society, also to help people, have a one-stop shop for information regarding green building materials. Apart from that, if you would like to become a member of the Kenya Green Building Society and receive frequent information on other webinars and so on that we do from time to time, the membership is open even for young people. We have a youth chapter that's very active in the work it does. So we are here and we're always ready to partner. We have master classes in different areas, from energy to wastewater management, etc. And we're always open to collaboration. We're always signing new MOUs with other associations in the built environment, in order to actually, build that capacity and help everybody adapt so that we can tackle climate change together. And we're very excited about this partnership. Thank you very much for having us here today.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much, June. Dr. Mungai, any closing remarks?
Yeah.
Uh-oh, Dr. Mungai has left the building. Okay. Oh, here he comes. He's joining back. Dr. Mungai, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, there you go. Please close.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. So Robin, I just want to continue from where you stopped. You talked about we should continue educating, but I think this journey requires more and more apostles, evangelists, and all of us in our own individual situations. We must be able to call it and be able to push the agenda, because truly, as I was saying, government of Kenya have put very good mechanisms. They do have regulations, they have policies, but then when you also look at, implementation, when it comes about enforcement, is still a challenge. And that enforcement can only be done, by us, by trying, to call it and go in the voluntary way. So my call to action is for everybody. Let us be championing good things that are addressing climate change, and we continue promoting them. And that way is how we can be able to make a difference as the people, and as champions. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you both very much. I'm going to check here in our chat to just see any questions that may have come up. let's see, June, we have one question here. Somebody's asking about the procurement process embodying materials such as cement, sand, efficient water. I don't know, maybe they're asking, is there any standards that are being put in with the procurement? And maybe I can ask here, I'm always looking at, who is one of the biggest builders in the economy, the government? So in their own buildings, June, do you know if they have such of these kind of standards and so forth? Are you aware of that, or anything that we can, or is that one strategy that we can try to implement? They're one of the biggest builders, and they can lead by example with this.
Yes, KGBS has been working with various counties to actually introduce this at that level, and with the Ministry of Housing also to introduce the idea that government should audit its buildings. If for nothing else, just start at the point of changing bulbs to LED bulbs, which is becoming, remove the old fluorescent tubes and begin there. Next step for a lot of at the county level to consider solar PV for lighting, and there are products in the market that are kind of useful now and have the business models deployed where they don't even have to put up the capex, and so that transition, they can see the savings immediately on their electricity bill. So there's we have programs in, I think, 3 counties so far to create those pilot projects so that other counties can see and learn. And so yes, that is something that these buildings were designed in the 60s and 70s, as you know. So obviously they're far from energy efficient and the like, but some of them actually have pretty good ventilation, natural ventilation. It's interesting, some of those 70s buildings, but the government ones definitely, that could have a major impact if government took that seriously and implemented this kind of initiative, even just from a cost-saving basis alone.
Okay, great. So maybe that is one that we can also get behind, and just even saying, aside from the retrofitting of buildings, all new buildings that they're building, in their procurement, in their tenders when they're calling for professionals to work on these works, are they including that even in their own, standards? In their own standards, are they saying this is critical? And so I think that we need to be looking in there and saying, that's an easy start, if you will. These are easy, low-hanging fruit that we can start to see a sea change in this way, if you will. Okay. Let's see here. So we have I'm going to open a poll here for everyone that's in attendance. And the question is, do you believe that if you had more information on green policies, that you would incorporate sustainable designs in your developments? So please, everyone that is in attendance, you see that the poll is live. Take a moment, and while I'm doing that, I'm going to thank June and Dr. Mungai for being here, and ask you to give us space for the next set of panelists to come on. Thank you so much for being here, and we look forward to continue to observe the conversation in the gallery. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. Let's see. Say it again, Doctor.
Robert, I said thank you for having us. Thank you so much.
Okay, great. Thank you. So, yeah, there you go. Great. Yes, Emma,
so,
you're saying?
There was some interesting, conversation in the chat, and even as we wait for Etta and Steve to join in. There's a question around, and I don't know whether you've addressed it. Sorry, I dropped off at one point, but we've talked a bit. Building is not only the buildings, but it's also the infrastructure. And I think there's a question on the chat about what is there that's available for, we have to also be conscious about roads and infrastructure. And like you said, government is one of the biggest builders, as it were, and one of the biggest things that they do is actually infrastructure projects that have huge impacts on environment. So I think there was a question there from regarding what is in it for those kind of big infrastructure projects. There's also a question about enforcement, which would be wonderful because we have Chief Compliance Officer from NCA, Architect Stephen Wilu, who will be joining us and just be talking from a government perspective. We've talked about the carrots, as it were, right now, and with Dr. Edward and June, in terms of enticing people. But where is there space for the and developers and the like? Really, sometimes having it in law is the fastest way to get people to comply. We all know now none of us uses paper bags, and we got dead with one just because government says that. So there is a role for government to direct in that way. So I'm looking forward to the discussion, Robin. And for those of you who've joined us and don't know, today is our anniversary, Build Kenya. We're a one-of-a-kind book, soon to be an online course for people who want to build in Kenya. If you don't have a copy, make sure you get to our website. That's www.buildinginkenya.com, and you can order a copy. It will be brought to you straight to your doorstep. And if you're around Yaya or in town, you can step into Prestige Bookshop or Bookstop at Yaya Center, and you can get yourself a copy. Step-by-step guide for anyone who wants to embark on a Mjengo project to understand better. And today's conversation is around building green and averting crisis. Robin, do you have any comments, even as we wait for Etta to join?
Yeah, I think there's actually Etta coming in. I think that, Emma, I think, it's just kind of how, I think this is one of those things that where's the tipping point on this, right? This is something that's gonna, we need a tipping point, and we can't, any of us, you and I, just kind of get comfortable and think that it's being done. I think we need to continue to, at every angle and every opportunity, be looking for opportunities to infuse this, if you will. So glad that Etta has joined. We have one other panelist coming in. Let's see where Stephen is. Welcome, Etta.
Hi, glad to be here. Thanks for having me. It's been a great discussion so far.
Thank you. And even as we wait for Stephen to come in, Etta, you're an architectural designer at BuildX Studio, an Aspen Senior Fellow. I wondered about the senior. And just tell us, the first question is, when we talk about sustainability, it's almost sometimes, Robin had said that it's how we have built traditionally. And then when we started building like how the West built is when we forgot some very fundamental things that we were already doing. We're building with materials that were around you. We were always, there was always natural ventilation, natural lighting. These are not foreign concepts as it were. But the question comes in now with modern ways of building, the conversation around cost. Not when you're building your nice, simple mud house, but when now you're building a Western style building. And we're talking about, the housing crisis. This is conversation of part 2 is really around the housing crisis. And part of the housing crisis is a cost conversation. So Etta, maybe can you just speak to that in terms of the 3 aspects of sustainability? There's an aspect of economic, social, and environmental. While it's great to talk about environmental, we must not forget about the cost aspect and the social aspect. If you can speak us through that, and then if you want to, share some slides and everything, you can just let us know and we'll cue them. Thank you, and welcome, Etta, and welcome, Architect Stephen Wilu. Happy to have you on this conversation this morning, or almost afternoon.
Okay, thank you, Emma. Maybe a quick one for my presentation. I'd like to use the slides. So I don't know whether you will share or I can as well do it from my side.
Okay, we'll queue on. Etta is just going to have a conversation around that, and then we'll queue you when you're ready. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I think, thank you, Emma, for that question. The most important factor that is forgotten in the way that we market sustainability is that there's always the aspect of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, in that in many developing countries, sustainability, saving the environment, is just not a high priority. That is high up there in sort of like fulfillment and enlightenment. At the moment, food, shelter, and in meeting my basic needs is a key priority. However, the climate crisis is directly connected and unpredictable, so we don't know how to predict our crops. There's unpredictability in terms of natural disasters that are caused by climate change. There's an unpredictability in terms of when my next house will be if the floods take them away. So the way we market, I think there's somebody who mentioned that climate change has had very poor marketing, because people said it's something that, you know, the government will sort out, somebody else will sort out. But then the people who are getting directly affected do not know it is linked to climate change. They just think natural disaster. They just think, oh, I can't get I don't have space to, I don't have this. So for me, I think the environmental, economic, and social aspect is directly connected. And the only way that we can make this climate change, sustainable design, green building, take it down to the people who are going to be able to effect this change, the people who are using the materials to build, the people who are building the huge amount of construction in Eastleigh, in the slum areas, it's by making it clear that climate change is directly connected to the things that we care about the most: food, shelter, and clothing. And for that, we really need to get it away, take it away from the high class, take it away like it's not a high-end commodity. And that's why climate change needs to be connected to the affordable housing movement. And the government is making great strides, but not enough. At the moment, affordable housing cannot be affordable in green. Like it's completely separate, because green is something that, you know, you need to have fancy sun shading, you need to have additional costs, you need to have additional upfront cost. But can we make it connected to bills? Can we make it connected to the fact that the unit becomes cheaper in the long run, that the fact that the unit is using less water, the unit is using less energy because it has been built in a green way, and make it a standard, basically making it attractive. So we have to market this properly, and to market it properly, we have to consider economic and social factors as a prerequisite for environmental design.
Thank you so much. And you said it that you know, there has to be a paradigm shift in how we view climate change and in how it impacts us. But I think when we're talking also about affordable housing, there's a big role that government plays. And Architect Stephen Mwilu, who's with us this morning, is Compliance Officer at National Construction Authority. There's been a great strides made in improving the building code. Building code really is the Bible of how we build in Kenya. And there's a lot of inclusion, as June had earlier said, in terms of the advocacy work that the Kenya Green Building Society did to ensure that green building building green was anchored properly in the building code. And I'd just love to invite Architect Stephen to just take us through very quickly, not necessarily all the slides, but just take us through, and Stephen, I'll be the one sharing the slides, but just take us through what is government doing to change the narrative and to make affordable and green, walk hand in hand, as it were. So Stephen, over to you. I'll be sharing your slides shortly, but you could just, give us a background of the building code process, and as I share the slides. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Emma. Yeah, it's very true that the building code currently in Kenya has gone through some tumultuous processes. As you are aware that previously, or the code that is in place is a 1968 document, which unfortunately is not anchored in any act. And that's the reason as to why the need has arose for the review of the 1968 document, and as well, the changes that have come in the construction industry. The issues that we are discussing today are not have been or are not included in the 1968 document, which is more or less like outdated, but now we need now to include them, and we have already included them in the new code, which is through the AG, the processes that stakeholder involvement that included many institutions and many experts. This document is not yet out, it will be out soon. And it's good as well to inform you on how it came into being anchored at NCA. Previously, this document was anchored in the Local Government Act. As a result of the 2010 Constitution, there was no law into where the building code would be anchored into. So from 2010 up to late last year, 2019, when the government decided that the building code needs a new home, and NCA was the place that it was placed in. NCA came into being as well in 2011, with its main function being to promote and coordinate the construction industry. Our work is, but not limited to promote and stimulate the expansion of the construction industry. We do quality assurance. This includes the site inspections. We do provision of consultancy and advisory services to the minister and anything related to the construction industry. We accredit skilled workers, construction workers, and as well we register contractors in the different fields of works of either buildings, civil roads, electrical, mechanical. We do training of the contractors and of the skilled workers as well. Code of conduct for the construction industry, and as of now, of course, we need to enforce the building code. On the areas that the building code has incorporated the issues of sustainability, they include the water efficiency, energy efficiency, resource efficiency, passive design strategies, and I'll be going into some details or some clauses which includes all this, natural lighting, site planning, landscaping, and waste management. In part 2 of the code, it talks about the siting and the spacing about buildings. The issues to do with the site selection, they have to be taken into account. The issues of orientations are incorporated. The building materials, previously, the 1968 document was more or less a performance-based. Was prescriptive based, but the new one is performance based, and thus allowing innovative materials, less carbon materials that can be able to perform as expected. Part 14, dealing with the water services, drainage, waste disposal, and stormwater drainage. The new code has provided provisions for reduced flow and plumbing fixtures, recycling of waste water, landscaping design to reduce the enhancement of water percolation and water harvesting. On lighting and ventilation, which is in part 10 of the new code, there's promotion of energy efficient appliances. There's use of alternatives, renewable sources of energy. Part 16, dealing with the landscape. These are new provision which was not in the previous document, and it provides for greening of at least 20% of the development that one is doing. And on part 17, to deal with inspection and maintenance of the building environment, this has been allowed that after every 5 years, there is need to inspect. This will ensure monitoring of the performance of the building elements, and these will include part of the green building elements that have been allowed. Refuse disposal in part 19. The new code encourages a source reduction, reuse, recycling, and as well promotes waste separation at source. Thank you, Emma, for that as of now.
Yeah, thank you. I think I've tried to share your slides and maybe Robin will assist, but thank you for highlighting what aspects of building green have been incorporated in the building code. But there's a very good question about, and I've had this severally, that Kenyans, we're great at creating wonderful policies and wonderful laws, but where we fall short is in enforcement. I mean, we've always had a building code. We have zoning guidelines as we speak. but people have no qualms in terms of building 20-story buildings where zoning guide says 4 stories, or building 100% plot ratio where it says 50% plot ratio, ground coverage. So maybe from a perspective of government and enforcement and NCA, interestingly, as much as the building code sits with you, I know you say you own your construction authority. So post-construction, what happens? And during construction, how will you be able to enforce some of these factors? And the good question that I've been asked in terms of construction is just not only buildings. There's infrastructure, and a lot of even a lot of cement and concrete works is used in a lot of those big infrastructure projects. So how will you enforce, just very shortly before we look back to ETA, and then we'll be able to show your slides.
Thank you. Thank you. Currently, the government is working towards a one government approach
and we'd love to
policy.
see you, I don't know if you can come on with your video.
Sorry? I am saying...
if you could turn on your video, we'd love to see you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. There you see. There you go.
Yeah,
I'm saying, smile we were missing.
Thank you. I was saying, currently the government is working towards a one government approach system, whereby the issue of multi-agency operation is the key. As you notice, the building code, as much as the law says it's NCA to enforce, it requires many players to deal with it. So within the one government approach, the authority, of course, is working with the multi-agency teams. This will include, but not be limited to, the county governments, which are key from the word go in terms of approvals of the developments, as well as the other regulators, the BORACs and the association related with it, AAK, the IEK, and the EBK. In terms of our professionals, starting with them, when they are designing, they need to incorporate and make sure that all the requirements of the building code is expected, and it goes to the county governments for the approvals, and it comes to NCA for the compliance certificates. Going forward to the site inspections for quality assurance, we need to go as a team. We need to go and confirm whether what is expected has been incorporated. So to answer the question directly, the NCA is looking forward to ensuring the one government approach system is done, incorporating all the other agencies involved in the construction industry. I am aware of KGBS, which is new, the newest kid on the block, in terms of us working with them and making sure that some of these things, which might be new to many people, they'll be in a position to understand and incorporate them. Thank you.
Thank you. And ETA, that's from sort of a stick perspective, but as BuildX, as an architectural practice, you have embraced building green, and even just from your conversation before, and I know we talked about trying to ensure that all three aspects, that is social, environmental, and sustainable and economic factors, are considered. Maybe you could just take us through some of the projects you've done and how you've been able to ensure all these three aspects are considered in an affordable housing sort of setup. And if Robin is able to share your slides, that would be great. I hope you'll be better at tech than I am. Yeah, and ETA, just feel free to even just take us through, even as Robin shares your slides. What are some of the projects you've done? Is it a reality? There's what you do on paper, very glamorous, as I draw on reality, another ball game, as it were.
That's true. I think whether the slides come or not, I can walk us through some of the work that we've been doing. Can you hear me? Okay. Yes, I think
yes, we can.
Emma is very right. Sustainable design, environmental design is a buzzword. And so right now is affordable housing. Everyone just wants to say all their housing is affordable, everything is green. But the reality is that to actually do things green, we need to take in certain systems to ensure that the market that we're trying to generate is actually in reality green. It's not just something that we say that we do, but it's something that is actually happening on the ground. And I'll take us through, for example, the affordable housing project we're working on right now at BuildX called Zima Homes. And in this one, we're working with a project on Gitaro Road in Kiambu. And there's been 4 key aspects that have enabled us to sort of be successful, things that we're struggling with, and things and lessons learned that I think the entire sector can benefit from. One is that you cannot say you're green unless you have a form of rating system to check the measures that you're inputting are green. As a designer, as an architect, just saying, oh, look, I've planted some vines on the side of my building. That is not a green building. Why are they there? What are they doing? How are they going to be maintained? Does that mean that you're going to now end up using a whole bunch of water resources to maintain this green landscape? It has to balance. All the different aspects of green building have to balance. Energy consumption, water consumption, as well as the embodied carbon of the materials that you're using in the building. And as June mentioned, IFC and KGBS and the government have been trying to advocate for EDGE as a tool because it's free to use, it's free to incorporate into the building, and it can be used as a design tool, even if not necessarily used for certification. The second thing is that public sensitization. So our project that is coming on here is we're planning on doing 20,000 homes in the next, by 2050, but not necessarily rebuilding. Our first building, our first prototype will be replicated and open source to the market. We have to change. We need to get everyone, all the players in the market working together to get this. So if you go next, can it go next? Yes. So public sensitization doesn't just start from the actual design. So for us, we have interviewed over 300 people who are going to be the target end users of this. So we have gone into the different markets in the bottom 40%, whether it's in the Wangigi market, whether it's in the low-income settlements, for people who are going to be buying these affordable housing units and asking them, what is important to you? What is a criteria that you use for this? Is green building even important? Or how will you make sure that you end up using the right lighting systems? And how can we enable you to be an effective green building user? As I'd mentioned in the previous one, green building and climate change is not something that comes naturally in the developing world. And us designers are not even the target market that we're trying to build for and design for in the green building. So we've been going to all the different sectors, all the different people who are going to use these spaces to get green building sensitization, as well as ensure that we are designing something that will actually be used in a green way. If you go next. So these are some of the findings we've gotten, and if you just keep going next, I don't think it has to go through the entire system. And yes, and here are some of the design principles that we've used. And as I'd mentioned, we always copy from the West. We always assume, green must come from the West, yet we have the solutions here. Having an efficient structure. So it's not necessarily that we need to build from mud huts again to be green. No, we don't need to over-romanticize it. It just means that we need to make sure that we're having a very simple grid system so that you can reduce the amount of concrete and still using in the building. Another principle we have is that the second one, which is less materials, more design. So we think that design, and we need to design, we need to build, we need to be as fancy as possible so we can attract. No. What do you need? How efficient and simplified can you make the building such that you're not using unnecessary resources, but still making it a beautiful and wonderful space to be in? And then I've mentioned green building tools and social vibrancy. A green community is a happy community because everyone is networked and is working together. It is, again, going back to the traditional village settings and the marketplaces, which were open air. Like, it's not actually a built space. I love what Emma said, is that green building is not just buildings. It is the infrastructure created around buildings. It is courtyard, it is green roofs, it is accessible roofs. It is creating functional spaces where people can be social and vibrant and interact with their environment, and interact with whatever the environment is telling them to do, whether it's recycling, whether it is being more planting gardens or planting urban gardens as well. And then also surrounding it by nature and creating spaces that are accessible and inclusive. So if you go next. And this, for example, this is an affordable housing unit. And you don't think in an affordable housing unit that you can have a courtyard, but you can. If you endeavor from the very beginning that it's not about maximization of space, although we do have a very strict number of units that we can fit and how many so that we can make the units affordable, how can you maximize accessibility to nature, whether it's a small quarter, whether it's a small space which people can be able to see and experience? It can be done. For us, we're working with half an acre, and it could have just been row houses, concrete jungle style, but we said, you know what, let's ensure that we have a quarter, whatever size it can be, to ensure that these spaces get good cross ventilation. And exploring the opportunity from the very beginning enables you not to think backwards and try to put green after the fact. Keep going next. I think I'll end there so you can stop sharing. I don't think the rest will be too technical. But just in answer to your question, I think those four aspects, green building rating tools, to ensure that you are not just being, green for the sake of being green, and that you can actually see the cost benefit analysis of some things. There's some things in the affordable housing sector that you just can't do. Like we're trying to put solar panels and solar hot water heating for 150 units. That is very expensive. But can you create a provision that in 20 years' time, if an individual user wants to add a piping system to do solar hot water heating, we have the provision for that? And what does that cost like? And what is the roof space required for that? So putting green in a way that is efficient and effective, as well as using it as a way to sensitize the people on site. So it's more effective to spend your money on a monitor system in the house that tells people how much electricity they're using. And for that, they'll be able to see, oh, if I use LED, if I use this, they can immediately see. And they can see within that tool that, if I install this in 10 years' time, I might pay this upfront, but I'll save this in terms of electricity consumption or hot water usage. So it's about putting smart tools which can enable the user in the 30 years. I mean, operational energy is quite high in the affordable housing sector, to be able to be green. And the second is public sensitization. We cannot ignore the fact that green is a buzzword that nobody understands and nobody seems to know how to access it. And then the third is government. I know the government is here, NCA. We work together, we fight together. But to be honest, the green building climate change has not trickled down to the people who are actually trying to implement this. Like, we're having a huge fight right now with the Kiambu County because they really want us to, they insist that we must move our kitchen so that the lounge, so like we need to move our kitchen so that but we'll put the kitchen in a specific location so that the lounge has natural light, which is the space you spend the most amount of time. And that argument is falling on completely deaf ears because this green building aspect has not trickled down to the government. And beyond that, I believe the government entity that really should embrace this is NEMA and the environmental impact assessment that we're all required to do, but it's completely a separate conversation. So if there's a way we can integrate NEMA license, the struggle we used to get NEMA licenses, as well as the NCA and planning approval, to be able to get these sort of agencies to talk to each other, I think it will make a great step forward. And yes, and the last ingredient I believe that is necessary is sacrifice. You will not win on every development. And at BuildX, we have that experience. You really won't. But just making one stride, trying to use the right kind of materials. The plan for us to get to sort of sector transformation is a 50-year plan within BuildX. And it has nothing to do with just what BuildX can do. It's about what the entire sector can be able to do. Can we open source? Like Zima will be completely open sourced as case studies for green building, for gender lens design, for environmental design, for accessible finance. Open source is such that the next 10,000 affordable housing homes in the next 10 years, people see, oh, I can do this, I can do that, I can't do this, and this is the struggles that we've faced, and continue building on that, such that in 30 years, the sector has transformed. We cannot be selfish about green building. We need to educate the public, let other people also try out their systems, work together, both at government and developers and builders and designers, so that in 10 years, 20 years time, we see the change. Right now, it's sort of individual efforts, one, and that won't be effective. So yes, green building rating tools, sacrifice, public sensitization, and government bodies, let's work together, please, please, and we'll see the sector change. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you so much, Etta, and it's wonderful to have two of you playing on each other. It's called healthy tension on a panel, yeah? And I think you're all on the same page, because architect Stephen actually did say that it's about government agencies working together. It's very interesting about NEMA, and they're nowhere in this conversation. So that's very funny that it's NCA on this. But if they all start talking to each other, then NCA, which has maybe better connection with the construction industry, is able to, be the voice and the channel that NEMA is able to converse with us. County governments who are on the ground are able to converse. So I think that whole aspect of once, government agencies talking to each other and talking to us in one voice, because sometimes you're hearing multiple voices, you think you're, going crazy or something because everyone's telling you something different. But Etta, thank you so much. I think you've put it up so well that we should talk to each other about things trickling down, about public participation, and it's all of us together. It's our planet. It's not one person's planet, it's not government's planet, it's our planet. And we must all look at it as a long-term journey and not despair. And I think breaking it down into little steps is very useful, even as speaking as a practitioner in an architect, that sometimes selling the entire pitch to a developer may not work, but saying, hey, in 10 years you could do this, so let's put this in place. Let's be intentional. I think the intentionality is very, very, very important. And thank you for your sentiments. Architect Stephen, even as we're going to wrap up our session, Robin is our tech girl. She's going to show your slides, and then you can just take us through from that aspect. And you took us through an overview of what in the building code is going to require people to build green. But just, I know you had some, you highlighted all that in terms of natural lighting and the lights, but what's the end of your presentation?
Thank you, Emma.
Robin, I saw your plug there to change the world.
Yeah, thank you. I actually went through almost
go
the
ahead,
slides.
Stephen.
Yeah, maybe we just scroll down to the CIP, that's the construction industry policy. As a country, as we are aware, we have lived without this policy. And that could be one of the reasons as to why we might be having these challenges. So the construction industry policy currently, which was worked by NCA and the stakeholders, is at the cabinet level. And we hope that it will pass through cabinet, it will go to parliament, the processes will go through, and the need for making use of this document will be appreciated. There's a thematic area number 8, which deals with environmental sustainability and conservation of the heritage. This is on slide number 24. If we can go there, or I can just proceed. So on this policy, the government, the policy statement is that the national and the county governments will promote environmental sustainable development and conservation of the heritage in the construction industry. The directions that the government promises to do are: the government will ensure the industry meets the requirements of the SDGs and the multilateral environmental agreements. It will enforce sustainable waste management practices in the existing legal framework in Kenya. It will promote education and training programs on environmental sustainability. It will formulate and enforce sustainable construction practices on waste management practices, energy efficiency, water efficiency, environmental sound materials, passive designs, and climate resilient infrastructure. It will fund research on environmental issues affecting the construction industry. Continued to preserve and enhance biodiversity. It will enhance or ensure that all new and refurbished structures have a post-occupancy sustainability plan. It will enforce conservation and restoration guidelines and integrate it in the code of conduct for the construction industry. Promote awareness in the industry on the value of heritage sites, facilitate assessment of the overall structural integrity of sites in the heritage sites, and it will recognize and reward projects and innovations promoting environmental stewardships. So if this policy is ascended to by cabinet and it goes through the procedures in the parliament, then we are saying the construction industry players will now be brought together, because they have been lacking this construction industry policy for a very long time. So colleagues, if we can be in a position to lobby where we can, so that this construction industry policy is assented to and is approved, then we'll have something that we can as well use to as much as we enhance the other laws and the other areas, policies that we are dealing with. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stephen. Thank you for that. Just showing us the full scope of what policies and what laws and guidelines government is providing for us, even as we continue with this green conversation. And kudos to NCA for being champions within government of that. Keep it up. But where the rubber meets the road is in enforcement. Like I said, Kenyans are great at making wonderful constitutions and bylaws and guidelines, but really a challenge to you as NCA is in enforcement. And enforcement doesn't always have to be a stick scenario. I know I've been talking about carrot and stick, but for you as NCA, it's to really be the champions who, in this whole crusade, and lead from the front in terms of converting a lot of people. And sometimes as architects, we play a role, and urban planners, but really, as June and Edward said earlier, sometimes it's where the money is coming from that sets the direction. So what's that saying? Who pays the piper calls the tune. Yeah, so it might be interesting to also talk to other government agencies, not only in the building sector, but across in terms of treasury and the like, in terms of adopting sustainable finance, like Edward said, that then trickles down to different aspects, whether it's building, whatever else that people are investing in, that everything is sustainable. So thank you so much, to everybody. We're coming to an end. I don't see any questions. People just learning. They think they're very enlightened. They say they're learning a lot. So thank you so much for educating us. I wish we were getting CPD points, but we can actually. Yeah, those of you who are part of professional associations, they say get your training and then and then go and get your CPD points. So thank you so much for enlightening us, Etta. And even as we are going to close, maybe just some concluding remarks. I think we've covered a just really very broad conversation. This morning, from to actual, what would you like to leave us with, Etta?
For me, it is that please do not get overwhelmed by the challenge. Do something every single day. Like that one extra window you add to your drawing just to ensure there's cross ventilation, that person doesn't need to buy an AC, and just every single day, add something to your design, add something to your practice, add something to your policy, add something to your anything, just to move this thing forward and talk about it. I know we don't like talking. I am an over talker, but let's talk about it, because the transformation will be generational, and we just need to move it forward a little bit every single day.
Architects, yes.
Yeah, thank you. From me and from the point of view of the National Construction Authority, ours is to do regulatory, capacity building, and advisory. All these we cannot do alone. We have to work together with the other stakeholders in the industry. The construction phase, as we are aware, has many players. So we are ready and willing to partner with the like-minded agencies so that we can be in a position to provide advisory to the government, advisory to the public of what is expected of them. And of course, for the regulatory bit that we have been given, we'll use the stick when necessary and we'll use the carrot when necessary. Thank you.
Okay, great. Let's see, Emma, you there?
Thank you so much for that. Carrot in there's a consequence. Yes, I am. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Sorry, we can't hear.
Hello, can you hear me?
Robin, you're on mute.
We are really, really doing a doozy today.
Maybe Robin, you can.
Yes, I'm going to continue. So just want to let you know that the poll is open. It is open. Please answer that question. Take a moment and do that. We love your feedback. If you had more information on green policies, would you incorporate sustainable designs in your development? As Etta said, it doesn't have to be the big thing. So, you know, it's what's your my little thing, if you will. If Professor Wangari Maathai was here, she would say, what is your little thing that you're doing in this regard? So while those polls are coming in and those responses, we want to thank Etta and Stephen, both architects, for being here. If you would go back into the gallery, if you will, and exit the stage, and then Lizzie, our partner from BuyRentKenya, will join. Thank you very much for being with us today. Thank you. Okay, please, we're getting 100%, 100%. People are saying yes. If I only knew what is, if I can continue to quote people, let's see here. Maya Angelou says that if I knew better, I would do better. So if you know better about possible green building, would you do better? Would you incorporate it? Emma, any summation, anything? I think, you know, I'm taking away from it. I was telling the team, I think that this conversation, we need more of it. This has been a kind of a real 360 look around this issue today. We've gotten a chance to see, you know, the initiation of some of the current position of green building here in Kenya, why it's the way it is, what are the opportunities, what are the challenges. And then we've heard from people that are in their day-to-day work that are actually coming up with new ways and thinking about this green building, and in giving us inspiration and encouragement to just do something. You know, a journey starts with one step. So as Etta continues to remind us, do one thing. And we are encouraged that NCA there is something on the table that needs all of us to rally around. And so I think Lizzie and Emma, we have a duty to make certain that those policies and the needs that the government needs to hear from us, we need to be giving that voice and saying, no, it's not just a lone idea. There are many of us out here that want this to go through, and we want it to go through now. Time is of the essence. Emma, anything for you before we invite Lizzie to give? I don't know if it looks like she's still stuck a little, but Lizzie, welcome. Thank you.
Excellent conversations today. Amazing webinar session today. Good afternoon to our most valued invited speakers and moderators, ladies and gentlemen, and our colleagues. It really is my privilege to have been asked to propose a vote of thanks on this season finale of our three-part webinar series in partnership with Building in Kenya and BuyRentKenya. On behalf of BuyRentKenya and yourselves, and the joint team working behind the scenes here together, especially the technical team, we extend a very hearty vote of thanks to all our speakers. Architect Stephen Wilu from the National Construction Authority, Architect Etta Madete, also technical designer at BuildX Studio, Dr. Edward Mungai, Group CEO, Kenya Climate Innovation Center, June Arunga, CEO, Usafi and Head of Africa Business, and Vice Chairperson of the Kenya Green Building Society. And especially to you both, our moderators, and my personal friends, Robin Emerson, author of Building in Kenya and president of Women in Real Estate, Emma Miloyo, our architect and partner and in Design Source, for gracing your most important work and sharing with us your insights, opinions, really great conversations. I cannot thank everyone enough for their involvement and the willingness to take on the completion of the tasks that go beyond the comfort zone, especially June, who joined us today from New York, and it's past 3 a.m. this morning. You know, my hat goes out to you. 2 years ago, I also want to just take a moment to congratulate both Emma and Robin, as today we said at the beginning of our webinar that it marks the 2nd anniversary of your book and marks the journey that was started by, you know, industry professionals like yourself to make our industry much better in educating everyone. But really 2 years ago, BIK was introduced to the market with a mission to sensitize the public on how to ethically engage with the building sector and also being able to turn a profit. And since then, Robin, you and Emma have managed to take a technical book about building on a top booksellers list that has educated both foreign and local investors. So on behalf of the building sector and myself and BuyRentKenya and all of us on this value chain, we say congratulations. And if any of you haven't gotten this copy of this book, you please visit this website, www.buildinginkenya.co.ke. And we also thank you very much for being with all of us today. It's been a great pleasure. For more information on our webinar series, to participate as a webinar speaker or participant, do reach out to us on our BuyRentKenya social media pages. And if you want to look at developments in Kenya, please take a look at the developers map that's on our website currently. Thank you, everybody. And if you have more questions, do feel free to reach out to us. Once again, well done, ladies. Congratulations.
Yeah, definitely. And Lizzie, we cannot thank you enough for your friendship and your partnership. I think that we, you know, and a space and a friend that is there to willing to host these conversations, to empower people in the sector, your clients, developers. We thank you. Our hats tip to you and everybody on the BuyRentKenya team, if you will. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You know who you are, Sam, Kelvin, everyone. Thank you. Emma, anything? Okay. Well, we are going to dance our way out.
Thank you so much. Thank you for those kind words. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have to have some music. Someone should put some music for us. But thank you so much. Cheers. If you have your coffee or something, or chai, or something else in a thermos that is not, as someone says, an adult drink in a coffee cup, you can take a sip at it. Thank you, everybody, and look forward to engaging further. We will be launching an online course, so look out for that. For those of you who are a bit challenged reading books and you just keep books, we have you in mind. We have an online course.
And just to remind you, look for information. There's another seminar that is coming up, a webinar coming up on the 15th. We'll be looking at technology in real estate. So please look out for that, and we look forward to having you in that session also. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Have a wonderful day. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.